Hey guys, welcome to the tutorial on how to use F3X. So some people are wondering how to use F3X, and many people are interested in using it instead of Studio because of its clean design. So I already have a tutorial on how to install F3X and such, but I'm going to go ahead and show you just in case you don't want to go ahead and search over there for that. So you go to Develop, and then you go to Library, and then let this load. I don't know how long it'll take. Plugins, and then it should be around here somewhere. Oh, it's right there. But you can search up Building Tools by F3X or whatever. You install it, and then you have to go ahead and restart Studio. So that'll be pretty much it for that. So anyways, back here. So now we're going to go over... Actually, I don't even have it installed on this laptop. Never mind. I'm going to go ahead and install that. So you do have to open up the Studio page to do so. So I'm going to go ahead and... search up Studio. So you have to do this through Studio, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. And now we go to here, and now you go back to Develop and Library and in Plugins, and then I'm going to go ahead and install it. Okay, and then now we restart Studio and we open this back up. As you can see, you may be wondering why you don't have any plugins on this thing, but you actually do. You just need to open up a place first. So let's go ahead and open up Nature Walk, for instance. This will probably be the best place to show off F3X. Not exactly the most clean place to show it off. See, now it pops up. So go ahead and just click it, open it, and there you go. You have F3X now. So stuff is going to get really complicated beyond here, and you need to understand a bit of math and variables and such. So basically, increment is how much space something moves, or my workspace is loading. I'm going to go ahead and let it do that. Okay, it's done. So if my increment is 1, that means my stuff moves 1 stud. So let me go ahead and take some rocks, for instance, and then show you guys. So we have a nice brown rock here. So increment 1 is going to be 1 stud, so it moves that much. And in increment 10, for instance, it'll move that much. Or if I do 0.1, which is usually what I build with, it'll move about that much, so you can get much more accuracy. Another thing is that F3X will tell you how much you moved, and then you got your position variables. I wouldn't worry about this too much unless you're getting really advanced. So you can make a lot of symmetrical stuff. It'll tell you how much you moved. So I moved 14.6 studs, and I can do it again and over and over. You can also undo it with this button right here, or Shift-C. Every thing has a hotkey, so if I press C, for instance, it opens up rotate. It says it on there, so make sure to keep track of hotkeys. This will be very, very useful and save you some time. You don't have to go over and click. So anyways, moving on to resize. Oh, one more thing about moving too. Local and last, that basically changes what direction you can rotate it or move it in. So if I rotate it this way, I can move my block like that on last. Local works too, but it doesn't work well with multiple blocks. So global is basically the axis or the axes for the actual place, and then last is the axes for the actual block. So now we go on to resize, and basically it's the same thing. You got your increments here. So if I resize this way, increments 1 at a time, or if I do 10, then then it resizes 10 studs at a time, or if I do 0.1, you can resize 0.1 at a time. As you can see here, it'll tell you how much you resized it by, so you can make really accurate stuff, and it shows you the current size of this block. So if I was to change this to 26.2 to 10, now the block is 5 by 10 by 5. This will save you a lot of time if you're doing some accurate stuff like that. So now moving on to rotate. So this is basically your pivot, and it kind of goes on the same thing with last and center and local as well. You can change your increment for how much you can want to rotate. So if I want to go more accurate, I can do 5. Or, for example, the default is 15, so it does it by larger increments like that. I usually recommend 5 just because you can get a lot more accuracy. And it also tells you how many degrees you turn. So obviously a circle is 360 degrees. So if I turn it 90 degrees, it'll say 90 degrees. It says -9 or -270, which is the same thing. If I rotate it 180 degrees, it'll tell me it rotated 180 degrees. It also gives you the degree of rotation here, which will be really helpful to make sure your blocks are symmetrical and totally standing up. If you're afraid your blocks are kind of rotated, then you can just go ahead and move them around on some kind of other block, like this base plate, and it should automatically fix that. Now moving on to color, basically you select the block. Oh, I should go over selecting. That's the most important thing, actually. So to select stuff, have F3X out, and you click the block just like that. To select multiple blocks, just hold down Shift, and you can select whatever you want. And then to select a bunch of spots with a box, you just hold down Shift and then move your camera around and go like that. So if I wanted to select this whole tree really quickly without selecting parts individually, I just go like that and boom. Make sure you don't select like 200 or more parts because it will lag. So if I, for example, select this whole entire tree, as you can see there, it took a second to load. So I recommend you don't try to select masses upon masses of blocks. It will really try to kill F3X. So next is our paint tool. This should be really straightforward for you guys. You basically select what color you want. So if I was to select multiple blocks here, and I want to turn these all to red, then it'll do all that for me. That's pretty cool. Next we got our surface tool. I recommend just keeping all of your stuff smooth for now. And you can also select no outlines too. That's always useful if you want to get rid of outlines. But I'll teach you how to do that all together anyway. So now we got our material tool. So as you can see, our materials don't pop up until we select a block. That's always nice. So you got your transparency and reflectance. So transparency and reflectance don't work based on whole numbers. They work based on decimals. So if I was to go 0.5, it'll be half transparent. If I do 1, it's fully transparent. So just remember that it's off decimals and not whole numbers. So go back to 0. Or if I turn this into plastic, which works with reflectancy, I don't think any other material does. It'll be 50% reflected. It goes up to 1. So let's go ahead and put that back to 0 and put that back to slate. And to select your different materials, you just select your part and then select whatever. And there's a ton of materials, by the way. And they recently updated it, so there's now neon. So that looks pretty cool. By the way, when you guys select neon, you cannot see it while you're in studio. So if you go to test mode or play the actual game, then you'll see that it pops up there. Some people are like, dude, neon doesn't even work. It does. You just have to, it just doesn't work for studio. I don't know why it does that. It's probably to reduce lag, but I don't know. So next we got anchoring. This is very important for your parts, so make sure you select all that you build and anchor it. Otherwise, all your stuff is going to fall apart. Unless if you're making a destructive map, then the surface tool comes into play and you want to weld your parts together. So if I wanted to make this destructible, which you'd probably need a big explosion to do so, and I would select my weld, and then, well, it says this side is welded. This will go ahead and combine the parts together. I wouldn't worry about this unless you're wanting to make destruction maps, which are much more complicated to do. So now these are going to be connected, but once a player like comes over and has a big enough explosion or some kind of thing to break these two apart, then they're going to fall apart. But anyways, back to this. Anyways, and you have to have them unanchored to do so. But make sure you just have them anchored, otherwise you're going to have really bad problems. So next we got our collision tool. Unless if you want to make doors or things to walk through. So if I have collisions on, that means the players are going to collide into it. If I have them off, that means they can walk directly through it. So that's useful for doors or shadows or whatever you want to do. So new part tool, this is always useful for getting started. This is probably one of the most important things. You can also do this through Studio, but we're not using Studio now. Well, we are using Studio, but we're not using Studio's tools. So for part tool, you just click where you want to place it, and then it's there. It'll automatically select it for you, which is always nice. You may have to do some editing to get make this smooth, and I also think it's automatically anchored. Cool. So we can go back to select part, and then we can put down a truss, for instance. I mean, you can pretty much do every part that exists. You can do even vehicle seats. It's really advanced stuff. So let's go ahead and remove that. So next we got our mesh tool. If you guys haven't watched my mesh tutorial yet, but I'm going to briefly go over this. So that's what a cylinder is, and it's based off a certain mesh. So if I was to make this wider, whoops, I'm rotating right now, whoops, it'll go like that. They're a bit more complicated and complex just because of all the geometry that's involved. But if I go to head, and the file is based on like your IDs and stuff, that's also more complicated, and you select your colors and IDs. Spheres, and to get a perfect sphere, I can change that to 5, and boom, it's 5, 5, 5. So that's a perfect sphere. And also, when you make blocks meshes, instead of actually making them the actual mesh that they're supposed to be, these are kind of virtual meshes. So the collisions are still going to act like it's a block. So if I was to have like a giant sphere and this person was to walk on top, it'll still act like you're walking on a block. So just be aware of that. So if you're like building really good terrain and you make it out of spheres, you're going to be walking on blocks pretty much. And you're basically going to walk in thin air. Decals, you select your face, and then you add decal, you select your file, and then you can also adjust its transparency, which is really nice too. And you can also remove decals from certain sides that you select. Alright. So the F key, it looks like, it just teleports you there. I'm not exactly sure what that does. Oh, that's a weld tool. Huh, when I pressed F, it just teleported me there. So you can weld there. I don't ever use that. So next is probably one of the coolest things, which is dynamic lights. So basically, a spotlight is, it's basically kind of like a flashlight, I would like to say. So right now, it's pointing, and you guys can't really see it, can't you? Let's go ahead and put it over here somewhere where you guys can, actually, no. Here's what I'll do. You might be able to see a little bit better on here. So if you have like I don't even know. Okay. So if we turn the brightness up, actually no, I can make like really dark shadows and such. There we go. Okay, so now that we have our spotlight right there, you can kind of see that. So if I upgraded my range and then turn the brightness up, spotlights are usually not that bright, so you can kind of see it now with that dark spot right there. And you can adjust the angle, so if I do 180, it goes out 180 degrees, or 270, only goes up to 180. If I do 50 degrees, it's a very narrow cone, and it kind of spreads out as you go along. Very, very good if you're making cars. Really, really good for that. And you can select its different sides, so if I was to do back, it'll do the opposite side. If I was to do left, it'll go left, stuff like that. Let's go ahead and remove that. Point light is basically light that surrounds the object. So let's do 40 and then turn the brightness up to max so you guys can see that. So it's all around the object. If you turn on shadows, blocks will affect its range of light. So as you can see, if I put up a wall right there, it kind of blocks the light from going through that wall. But if I turn shadows off, then it doesn't really care what's around it. So shadow lights are really cool for realism. It kind of depends on what kind of environment you're building though, but I recommend you turn them on for realism. So now you got your special effects. So you got your smoke, and you can adjust its opacity. Basically, it's smoke transparency. Its velocity, so how fast you want it to go. So I have it max is 25, so it just shoots everywhere. And then also you can adjust its size. So I make a giant smoke cloud like that. We probably want to remove that now. Just be aware that special effects cause a lot of lag if you have a lot of them. So now we got fire. You can't really see it, but let's go ahead and make our fire larger. You can also adjust its size and such. So we can turn up the heat, which is basically velocity, or how much it goes up. Unfortunately, with special effects, you do have to move around the block in order to get it to point in different directions. So as you can see, I'm rotating it, and it's pointing in a different direction now where the heat's traveling. So that is kind of a disadvantage that you have to deal with compared to lights and such. So that's basically fire for you. So if I change it to this, no, that's dynamic light, sorry. So there's two different colors of the fire. So if I was to change the main color to like a pink, but the outside is still orange. So if I was to change that to blue, for instance, the outside, secondary color, you can the secondary color is more obvious up here, but it's not awfully obvious though, is it? Let's see what we can do. So 0, and then 255 for blue. So you can kind of see it kind of affects the top of the fire right there. Let's go ahead and remove that. And then sparkles, this is much more basic. It's just kind of a static effect, and then you can adjust its color as well. So yellow sparkles and then white sparkles, 255. You also have a nice color wheel here that's always useful. Really cool stuff. And then you also got your additional hotkeys like undo. So if you're like, ah crap, I messed up, press undo or shift Z, or you can also do redo. You can also delete with Shift X. So if I wanted to get rid of a bunch of blocks here, just hold down Shift X, boom, it's gone for you. Also, you have exporting and cloning. I don't really care too much about that stuff, but cloning, basically, you hold down Shift C, and then you just cloned whatever you selected, which is pretty cool. So if I wanted to copy this tree, I hold down Shift, make a box, and select everything, and then hold down Shift C, and boom. Again, if you select a obsessive amount of parts, I don't recommend 200 or above. It's going to probably crash Studio, and then you're crap out of luck. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And that'll be pretty much it. And then also you can create groups, which is useful for moving around items, especially if like you're making models and such. So if I click or hold down Shift G, click new. This stuff is tree. This stuff is a little bit more complicated. I never use groups, but that's kind of useful if you want to go ahead and select stuff or teleport to it or whatever. And then also you have your help section, which this is more basic stuff. Some of it may not make really much sense, but that'll be pretty much all. And that's all to F3X. It's pretty much got all of Studio's tools. Studio is obviously much more advanced, and you do need to run Studio in order to use F3X, but that'll be pretty much all. This also works in build mode, and you can get it as a model for like PBSs or live building to build with your friends. Simply just insert it into your starter pack, and then it's done. I might do another tutorial for that, but that'll be pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget to subscribe if you thought this video was helpful. Hit that like button and leave some comments. Let me know if you have any questions or what you think about F3X. And also, in case you're wondering, this is my place called Nature Walk. It's like 13,000 parts. I haven't worked on it in ages. I used to have a house right here, but I deleted it because it was crap. And basically, I'm making a giant place with floating islands and really, really massive amounts of detail. It runs really well too because it's pretty much everything manually built. This is really cool because you know how long this island took me to build? It took me about 50 hours, days upon days. I basically made a hollowed out design. I made it rock by rock. There's no copy and paste on this island. And I made it hollowed in. And I'm going to add some stuff in here too. So basically, it's a freaking hollowed in island, which is probably really rare to find in Roblox. And then I have like 1,000 part volcano over here. This took me forever to make the lava stream. That was a pain. It looks really, really nice though. You know, some building critics are being like, this place is mediocre. You know, this isn't even my best of my work, and I would consider this mediocre as well, since it's like a year or two old. It is really cool though. I'm glad I worked on it. I apologize if I never finished it, but that's pretty much all there is to it. Not many builders finish their projects because they get boring or don't continue them. Basically, I just got to add more content to this, like more land mass and such, and then it'll be finished. And also, another thing is that not only do you have floating islands, but you also have cave systems that run out through this whole thing. Now with the innovation of smooth terrain, there's basically no point in me for making this. You can make your own tunnel systems and such easily with simple clicks, but smooth terrain, of course, doesn't look that as good. Doesn't take as much effort either. So you can check out Nature Walk if you want on my profile. My username is Big Granny, and I'll see you guys later. Sorry for rambling on about a couple things, but I hope this is really helpful. I really enjoyed making this tutorial, and it's been a while. Let me know what other building tutorials you guys want. Again, if you ask questions, I'll probably make tutorials on them. And I'll see you guys later, and that'll be pretty much it for today. Thanks for watching.